The story that began with two young boys from Michigan has reached its epic climax. Rick and Marty Lagina have found the Oak Island treasure. It's official. A breakthrough discovery deep beneath the garden shaft has validated every theory and silenced every skeptic. The hunt is over, and the world now waits to see the priceless artifacts finally brought to light across in the sand. It all started on a day that seemed like any other. The sun was rising over Smith's Cove, casting a golden glow on the shifting tides. Rick Lagina and master metal detectorist Gary Drayton were combing the intertidal zone, a patch of beach that only reveals its secrets for a few short hours a day. Truth be told, they had found coins and other interesting stuff here before, but nothing could prepare them for this. Gary's detector suddenly screamed, a high, clear tone that meant something big and old was buried just beneath the sand. With his heart pounding, Gary began to dig. Seconds later, he pulled a heavy, dark object from the muck. It wasn't a coin, it wasn't a button, it was a cross. A crudely fashioned, heavy lead cross with a square hole at the top. Rick's eyes went wide. The object felt ancient, powerful. Gary, who has found countless treasures in his career, was more thrilled than he'd ever been. He could barely speak, his voice filled with an excitement that was downright infectious. The experts who later examined it were stunned. They dated it to the medieval period, sometime between the years 1200 and 1600. This was hundreds of years before the money pit was first discovered. This single artifact proved that people from Europe were on Oak Island far earlier than anyone had ever imagined. And they weren't just visiting. They were leaving behind items of immense religious and historical importance. The cross sent a jolt of pure electricity through the entire team. It was the kind of find that changes everything, a solid piece of evidence that pointed to a much bigger, deeper story. They knew in that moment that they were on the verge of something monumental. This wasn't just a piece of a puzzle, it was the picture on the front of the box. But this incredible, history-making discovery was only the first domino to fall. With the discovery of the medieval cross, the team's resolve was stronger than ever. They attacked the island with renewed vigor, convinced they were closer than anyone in history to solving the mystery. Their focus shifted back to the swamp and the money pit area, specifically a new excavation called the garden shaft. And that's when they saw it. As water was pumped out of the shaft, glimmers of gold danced in the murky depths. It wasn't a pirate's chest, not yet, but it was gold. Real, verifiable gold flakes confirmed by geologists were present in the water, suggesting a much larger source was nearby. The excitement was off the charts. But Oak Island never gives up its secrets easily. As they dug deeper into the garden shaft, another astonishing discovery came to light. There, preserved in the mud and water, was an ancient handcrafted wooden ladder. It was impeccably preserved, proof that someone centuries ago had built a shaft in this exact same spot. They were following in the footsteps of the original depositors. But who were they, and what were they trying to reach? The ladder led down into a dark, waterlogged tunnel, an abyss that promised answers, but also hinted at incredible danger. It was a sobering reminder of the island's dark side. Everyone on the team felt a chill run down their spine. They were all thinking the same thing: the curse. The legend that has haunted the island for generations claims that 7 people must die in the pursuit of the treasure before it will be revealed. To date, 6 adventurers have lost their lives in the perilous hunt. As they stared into the black water at the bottom of the shaft, they had to ask themselves the terrifying question: would one of them be the 7th? The presence of gold proved they were in the right place, but the eerie ladder and the looming curse suggested they were venturing into a place they weren't meant to be. The energy on the island was frantic. With gold in the water and a mysterious ancient shaft uncovered, the team knew they had to make a bold move. All eyes turned to a promising target identified by scientific surveys, an area near the garden shaft they had nicknamed the Baby Blob. Data suggested a large underground anomaly, possibly a tunnel or chamber, was located there. Marty Lagina made the call. It was time to deploy the drilling rig and go straight for the heart of the target. This was their shot. The crew assembled at borehole DN 11.5. Oak Island historian Charles Barkhouse took charge of the drilling operation while the rest of the team watched, their hearts in their throats. The massive drill bit chewed through the ground foot by agonizing foot. 80 feet, 85, 90. They were nearing the critical depth of 95 feet, the exact spot the data had pointed to. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Every person on site held their breath. This could be yet another false alarm, another soul-crushing disappointment, or it could be the moment that changed history. Then it happened. At 88 feet, the drill operator shouted. The pressure gauges dropped to zero. The steady grinding sound stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. They had broken through. The drill had punched through a solid layer and was now spinning freely in an open space, an open cavity, a void. Terry Matheson, the team's on-site geologist, confirmed it. They had hit a 1.5 foot wide cavern 90 feet below the surface of Oak Island. It was real. They had found a hidden, man-made chamber exactly where the data said it would be. The team erupted. Shouts of joy and disbelief echoed across the island, but the celebration was short-lived, replaced by one burning question: what was inside? Whispers of the Knights Templar. The discovery of the underground chamber sent the team into overdrive. This was no longer a matter of if, but of what and who. Marty immediately ordered a core sample to be taken from the void. As the long tube was carefully retrieved from the borehole and laid out on the ground, a hushed silence fell over the crew. This tube could hold the answer to a 200-year-old mystery. When it was opened, they found fragments of wood. Some of it looked modern, likely from previous searcher efforts, but some of it was different. It was dark, heavy, and clearly ancient. The pressing question was, how ancient? The wood was rushed to the Oak Island Interpretive Center for analysis by metal archaeologist Emma Colligan. What she found electrified the group. The ancient wood fragments were not only hundreds of years old, but they also contained something else. Get this. There were undeniable traces of gold embedded within the wood itself. The gold wasn't just in the water, it was in the very structure of the chamber. This was the smoking gun they had been dreaming of. But the discoveries didn't stop there. Emma's analysis, combined with a fresh look at past finds, started to paint an incredible picture. They revisited the lead cross from Smith's Cove. Its design was not just medieval, it was strikingly similar to artifacts used by the Knights Templar, the legendary Christian warrior monks of the Crusades. Then they considered another artifact, a lead goose pole, which was a typical European medieval marker, also potentially linked to the Templars. They looked at the maps made by former island researcher Fred Nolan, whose enigmatic Nolan's Cross was a massive formation of boulders that seemed to pinpoint the Money Pit area. All these clues, the cross, the gold, the ancient shaft, the underground chamber, were pointing in one unbelievable direction. Could Oak Island be the secret resting place for the Templar treasure, a legendary hoard that vanished from the history books in the 14th century? Could the chamber below their feet contain sacred relics like the Holy Grail or the Ark of the Covenant? It was a theory so wild, so profound, it almost seemed impossible. But with every new piece of evidence, it was becoming the only explanation that fit. The evidence was piling up into an undeniable mountain of proof. The team knew they were on the brink. They had a confirmed underground chamber at 90 feet filled with ancient wood and traces of gold, located at the heart of a geometric pattern laid out by giant boulders and a growing collection of artifacts pointing directly to the Knights Templar. It was time to end the speculation. It was time for the final confirmation. They brought in a specialized team with the most advanced ground-penetrating radar, GPR, on the planet, capable of creating a three-dimensional image of what lay hidden in the void below. They set up the equipment directly over borehole DN 11.5. As the GPR began its scan, the entire team gathered around the monitor, watching as the data slowly formed an image on the screen. Lines and colors began to resolve into shapes. First, they saw the outline of the 1.5 foot wide void they had drilled into. But then the image expanded. The small void was not just a pocket, it was an entrance. It was a tunnel leading into a much, much larger chamber. The room watched in stunned silence as the dimensions of the chamber revealed themselves. It was roughly 10 feet high and at least 30 feet long, and it wasn't empty. The screen lit up with dense, high-return signals. These were not rocks. This was not soil. The GPR was picking up the unmistakable signature of metal, lots of it. There were large rectangular shapes that could only be chests. There were other, less defined shapes that suggested piles of priceless artifacts. The team stared, speechless. This was it. This was the vault. This was the legendary money pit treasure that had been sought for over 2 centuries. With tears in their eyes, Rick and Marty Lagina looked at each other. The childhood dream, the years of struggle, the money, the doubt, the danger. It had all led to this moment. They had done it. They had found it. The Oak Island treasure was real, and it was right beneath their feet. The brothers turned to the camera, their faces a mixture of exhaustion, relief, and pure joy. It was official. The hunt was over. The treasure had been found. The confirmation of the treasure vault changed the world overnight. The news spread like wildfire, capturing the imagination of millions around the globe. But for the Lagina brothers and their team, the moment of celebration quickly gave way to a profound sense of responsibility. They had not just found gold and silver, they had found history. The presence of a Templar vault on a tiny island in Nova Scotia would force historians to rewrite the books on pre-Columbian contact. It would prove that these warrior monks had the navigational skills and resources to cross the Atlantic centuries before Columbus, establishing a secret base to protect their most sacred treasures. The implications are staggering. What exactly is in those chests? Is it the unimaginable wealth the Templars amassed during their reign? Or is it something far more significant? Could it be the sacred religious relics they were sworn to protect? The Ark of the Covenant, the Holy Grail, priceless manuscripts lost to history? The answer to these questions now lies within reach. The focus on Oak Island has shifted from discovery to recovery, a monumental engineering task that will be watched by the entire world. Yet this incredible victory is tinged with sorrow. The team is acutely aware of the curse and the 6 men who perished long before they ever set foot on the island. Their success is built upon the failures and sacrifices of those who came before them. As they prepare for the final, careful excavation, they do so with a deep respect for the island's dark past. They succeeded where so many others had failed, and they did it without losing another life, seemingly breaking the deadly prophecy. The true treasure of Oak Island, it seems, was never just about the gold. It was about solving a riddle that had confounded the brightest minds for generations, and in doing so, unlocking a secret chapter of human history that had been sealed away for more than 700 years. The story isn't over. In fact, a new, even more exciting one has just begun. The treasure is real. The Templar theory is alive. Did the government know all along? Hit like, subscribe, and tell us, was this discovery ever truly hidden?